G'day everyone and welcome to the Trekzone Spotlight. Joining me today is a man named Gary Davis from a fan film you might know called Dreadnought Dominion. Gary, thanks so much for your time today, man.
Oh, thank you for having me, Matt.
Now, what got you started in fan films?
What got me started? Well, I had a friend, Frank Parker, who was part of my Star Trek fan club, Starfleet International, and he was involved in a fan production called Starship Farragut. And he called me one day and said, "Hey, how would you like to be part of our own fan film? We want to make our fan film about our starship from our fan club, the Dreadnought Dominion." I said, "Great, what do I have to do?" I go, "I don't know how to act." And he says, "Hey, you're going to be my executive officer, and we're going to put something together. And oh, by the way, do you have any stories? Because we don't have a story for our film." So I just happened to have written short stories when I was in high school, and I had a short story that I thought would fit what he wanted, and I just gave him the short story, and he gave it to a very talented writer named Randy Wren, who turned it into a screenplay. And then we met down in Kingsland, Georgia at Farragut Studios in a very cold December and January, and filmed our first fan film. It was quite enjoyable.
What was the experience like jumping on the sets and playing these characters that you've watched on TV?
It was surreal. I mean, we got to Georgia like at 9 o'clock at night, and we all met for dinner, and then they said, "Hey, we're going to go over to the studio." And Mike Bednar, who was one of the principals in making that studio, he gave us the grand tour, and they opened up the door, and we walked into the corridor, and it was surreal to be on this set that you've watched so many times over the years, and it was like, oh. And then the very next day, we did a scene where I had to be in the captain's chair, and we did 2 scenes at the same time, because when you make a film, you don't film them in order. So we did 2 scenes that required me to be in the captain's chair, and I was in the chair for 6 hours. And it was the greatest experience of my life. We were constantly taking coats on and taking them off, and the makeup lady had to put makeup on our noses because they were red because it was so cold. But it was the best experience I'd ever had in my entire life. I wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere else.
That's the best thing about fan films, isn't it? All of those little things that could have just destroyed that experience for you didn't, because of such the excitement of being there on those sets, eh?
Yes.
So you're flash forward to a few years into the future, and you're still making fan films. I believe that there's more episodes of Dreadnought Dominion to come.
Yeah, after Farragut Studios became Star Trek Continues, and they closed the sets, we had to make do. So we shot an episode called Chain of Command, where it was myself taking over command of the Dominion. Our captain had moved on to other things, and I just used my office, and I dressed up the office conference table as a starship bar, and I made a food synthesizer, and matter of fact, I used that viewer over there to talk to somebody on another starship, and we made a little fan film just out of that. And we used some creative green screen for engineering, so I was able to talk to the ship, and then just kept going, because just because we had lack of an actual bridge set that we could go on didn't mean that we had to stop being creative. So we just kept it. And now we've just been patient. We've been looking at studios and looking at their availabilities, and we've got another episode, another vignette coming up. We're hoping to get some studio time and shoot that.
Well, now that Continues has wrapped and Ray Tessie has bought those studios, Starbase Studios, does that, as well as Starbase Studios, is that what's opening it up for you again?
Yes, one of those two studios hopefully become available to us. We've got relationships with both Starbase Studios and Stage 9 with Ray Tessie. Both of them are open to allowing people to go there and film. So, Starbase Studios has had their difficulties, getting everything together, but very talented prop maker Glenn Wolf puts together lots of things, and it's people like Glenn Wolf and Mike Begnar. Those have been the inspiration for me to be creative. I've been a model maker all my life, but I've never been a prop maker. So that's what inspired me to start building stuff of my very own to be able to fill that creative niche.
Now, there are, as you alluded to, there are the difficulties with both of those studios, but I'm not interested in discussing those today because it is about you and Dreadnought Dominion. Really what you're after is just what these studios can provide, a place for fans to come and film on those sets and have the same experiences that you had when you first stepped onto the set. That's right, isn't it?
Right. It's all about having fun. And and if they can provide the venue for us to be able to go tell a story, that's what we want. We've loved Star Trek ever since we were kids, and my production partner Randy Wren and I, we both have the same passion, the same vision. It's kind of funny. I have an idea and I'll run it by Randy, and Randy will go, "I was just thinking the same thing, and we should do that." And I couldn't ask for a better partner than Randy Wren. I met him through Frank Parker when we first did Dreadnought Dominion. He plays our chief engineer. And it's just been all uphill, downhill, over roller coaster ride with Randy. I couldn't do this without Randy. He's a writer, a thinker, comes up with great ideas. We bounce things off of each other. And, we're free to say, that's a stupid idea. We shouldn't do that. Or, wait a minute, yeah, that's pretty good. Neither of us have our feelings hurt, and that's what I needed in a creative partner. Is this guy? I've been so lucky.
Well, you say there's been ups and downs, but has it detracted you from making more Dreadnought Dominion? Absolutely not.
I mean, I read things on the blogs and Facebook, and that the drama of fan films has put me off. But in reality, isn't everything in life have drama? The common denominator between everything in life is people. People are people, and you come across some great, awesome, creative folks in anything that you do. In business, I did 22 years in the military. There were lots of people that, inspired me, both negatively and positively. And it's the same with fan films. It's ups and downs. You just have to roll with the punches. But the last thing you should do is just give up, because you can't get anywhere in life without moving forward, making lemonade out of lemons, whatever you can do to make things right. Like I said, when we lost our sets, access to those, I just used my office and I made my own stuff and, made my own costumes and did everything that I could to just keep going.
What's been your favorite moment out of all of your fan filmmaking?
The favorite, well, I said it before, it was sitting in that captain's chair for 6 hours. I mean, it was awesome, because the director would say, okay, we need Brousseau in the command chair, and I would sit down because they were filming somebody else, and I would keep saying, do you need Brousseau in that chair? Do you need him in that chair? And I would jump back in that chair just to sit there, and to be able to share this with my wife. She's hearing impaired, she's deaf, and she's never grew up watching Star Trek. So I was able to share this experience with her. And now when I do my fan films, I always put the closed caption on there for her and her friends, because I was surprised how many deaf people out there really enjoy Star Trek. So, we endeavor to be able to bring that experience to them as well. That's
really cool to know too, that you're embracing the audience, and conversely as well, Trekzone Spotlight. I've received a few emails as well that there are some hearing impaired people that watch the show, and it's been a real struggle to get those captions going on a weekly basis. But
yes,
it's about embracing that audience and making it accessible to everyone.
Yes, yeah, I was really surprised. You know, Tracy, she would tell me that she grew up watching, this show and this show, and then now we're going back and watching these shows because closed caption is so available. So it's very important for me to be able to put those on my shows, and was very enthusiastic and happy that Star Trek Continues and Farragut, they all provided closed caption. So I was able to share those as we went on with this journey into fan film. They should be able to see that and see the people that were just so motivated to bring them their experience.
Gary, conversely, on a 180-degree turn here, we've talked about the best moments of fan films. What's some of the more disappointing, the worst moments that you've experienced?
Well, I think the worst moment in my fan film experience was the loss of our series creator, Frank Parker. I think the drama got to him, and he bowed out. And he left us right when we were getting ready to release, our first film, Haunted. And to this day, I don't know why he really wanted to step back. I respected that. I respect the heck out of him and everybody who's said goodbye to fan films, because without them, I wouldn't be here. But that was the toughest part. Like I said, I owe everything about Dreadnought Dominion to Frank Parker, and not to be able to share that right now with him is my most disappointing. I think Frank does watch what we put out, and I hope that we're doing him proud. We still mention his character in the show. In Chain of Command, when I take over as captain, we mention that his character, Commodore Grissom, has gone on to teaching at Starfleet Academy, which we paralleled that in real life, because one of the things that Frank has a passion for is the Civil Air Patrol, and he mentors young people in his spare time. I just respect the heck out of. So we wanted to do an homage to Frank's character and Frank, saying that the Commodore Grissom went on to Starfleet Academy. But that was my biggest disappointment.
It fits in well with the Star Trek canon too, because everyone that moves on from our main ship goes to teach at Starfleet Academy. Beverly Crusher did it she was the head of Starfleet Medical, but she went back to Earth in season 2 of TNG. Chief O'Brien went back to the Academy, so it's a nice touch, and a great way of keeping those people that inspired the creation of the series alive in the canon of the series.
Yes. We thought it was a great nod. And again, like Randy Ryan and I came up with that. It just keeps Frank and the character of Commodore Grissom close to our hearts, because he started this, and we owe him a lot.
And if he ever wants to come back, the position's always open.
Oh my gosh, yes. We still have one episode, a full episode, 15-minute episode of Dreadnought Dominion. We want to do a flashback, before the occurrences of Haunted, and we either need to replace him, or we're trying to talk him back to coming in for at least a cameo.
Well, something interesting that came up on my YouTube comments feed yesterday was a poster mentioning that the guidelines restrict fan films, especially in the fact that it is now 2 by 15 minutes or 1 by 30 minutes, and then that's it, story's over. So this comment goes. How are you finding the guidelines working in with your fan film?
Well, we have one episode left that we need to finish this story, and it just happened to run about 30 minutes. So we were just able to look at that and say, well, we'll just chop it up in 2, because some serialized television, they will do 2 stories in tandem running together, and that's what we were going to do. We're going to do a ship-based story, and we're going to do a planet-based story, and they were going to run together in the episode. So when the guidelines hit, Randy just took the story and he literally just split it in two. So we would have our ship-based part of our episode and then our planet-based episode, and we would loosely tie them together so that we could still abide by the guidelines and say these are totally two related stories, and we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Well, do you have a release date in mind or a release time in mind of when we're going to see this next installment of Dreadnought Dominion?
Well, the Vignette, we've got a Vignette coming up that's only going to run, like 10 minutes. And right now we're in pre-production on that. We're just trying to negotiate where we can go to shoot this. And then later on, maybe next year, we'll be able to do the third episode of Dreadnought Dominion that we've been trying to do for so long.
Well, it sounds absolutely awesome, Gary, and I wish you all the best, and I hope you'll come back when shoots are in the can and you're in the editing process, and you can maybe show us some sneak peeks.
Definitely. We would love to share that. That's why we do fan films. We don't do it for money. We don't do it for rewards. We do it for fun. And if there's one person out there that watches our fan films and says, I really like that, then we did our job. I don't look at the detractors, their comments. You're too fat, you're too old to be doing this. I'm doing it for fun. And like I said, if one person watches it and says, I had fun watching that, then I did my job. It was a good day.
Fantastic, Gary. Thanks so much for your time today, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Matt.